This is The Baseline, discussing the hot button topics of the NBA.
Everybody, you're tuned to The Baseline. Callie, Warren Shaw discussing the hot button topics of the NBA, and this is a special edition live. As always, man, we come with it. Big things happening. NBA trade deadline edition of the Baseline NBA podcast. And of course, we couldn't do this solo, man. We had to roll out the big guns. You know what I'm saying? And so we are so excited to have on board with us some legendary people, athlete, podcasters, radio personalities, sportscasters. I mean, we like, what's that song? Tiago, bring them out. My man Shaw, talk to me, man. Is that what we were doing here for this trade deadline show?
You know what it is, man. And it's all good. We get the 19 family together, brother. And Amo was a part of that 19 Media family. Des, longtime member of the 19 Media Group family. And you know my downtown Gerald Brown doing his damn thing here on the Baseline as well, too, man. So this is going to be a special show. Excited. We got some people popping in the chat as well, too. Shout out to you, Tyler. We see you, fam. We're going to get this thing rocking and rolling.
Absolutely, man. And, once again, we appreciate everybody for hopping on board and being a part of the 19 Media Group family, especially those who have been following and supporting, the shows that we've been putting out. And I say that collectively for those who are the avid sports listener. But, and listen, we'll always, we have more than enough time for us to be able to do the plugs. But you guys know why we're here. We're here because the clock is finally hit 12, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? And so now we can kind of look back and say to ourselves, as my man Shaw aptly put it on the title, what the hell just happened? So that is basically the gist of the conversation for this year's 2025-26 NBA season trade deadline. And so much movement took place within the last 72 hours, and we are here to help break all of that down. So as always, man, be sure to get at my man Shaw at the Warren Shaw. You can get at me at GameFace Lee. The show's Twitter handle is the Baseline NBA Podcast. And if you're catching this right now in the live stream, man, we encourage y'all to jump on in. And as we talk through a lot of the stuff that's going on, give us your thoughts. We're certainly going to make sure that we include people. Shout out to our man Mike Steph is out there representing as well too. And so, yeah, we're going to definitely be covering a lot of information that's taking place and that's impacting the landscape of the NBA. And there's no question. Right, my man Gerald, you can speak to this, man. These particular moves that have taken place are the kind of moves that you would expect to happen when you see that teams see a window of opportunity. They smell blood in the water. They smell gold somewhere at the end of that tunnel. And some of these moves that were made, while they may not have big magnanimous names to it, they're significant moves because it's actually a telltale sign about what those teams feel like they have done, and as far as taking that step forward for them to give themselves a chance.
Yeah, I looked at this, man, and clearly I don't believe any of the teams, if you look at some of these moves, majority of them, I think it was just really ultimately teams taking bad contracts. You take my bad contract, I'll take yours, and we'll just move things around. I do like the Vucevic move to Boston. That's the best one that really stands out to me. Amo can really speak to the fact that maybe some of the Hornets moves that they brought in backup point guards really helped, just in case you have LaMelo go down with some injuries and stuff like that. But I think ultimately this came down to really, it's just really changed. I take your bad contract, you take my bad contract. You don't want to be here, I'm gonna go ahead and move you, and that's it, and leave you scratching your head and saying, like Shaw put it, what the hell is going on? So that's how I sum it up.
Yeah, I'm going to tap in. I think this was the fiscal year deadline, right? And so many people trying to get out of second aprons and trying to cut their bills and the whole nine. And it's wild. And one of the funniest things about this to me is I was talking with Des kind of offline, and it's also the year of the prep. So I think we have three teams who are prepping themselves for next year, right? Trying to get that draft pick over the course of the summer and then try to hot the trot next year. So we're looking at a Utah. You're looking at even in Indiana right now, and maybe even a Washington as teams that, hey, they got guys who they may not rock with right now, but they setting it up for what they can potentially do next year, trying to sell tickets to the whole nine. Kick it to you, Amo, real quick. Your quick overview thoughts. Then we're going to get into some specifics as well, too, and rock with Des as well, too.
Oh, yeah. Like, I agree with with OG Brown with the Celtics with that trade for Vucevic was huge for them. And I think and Jaren McCain going to the Hornets. I mean to the Thunder. And the moves the Hornets made. And I really feel like a lot of these organizations are doing things like they making trades for the future. Like I think they're taking a chapter out of the OKCs and the Spurs, and I feel like Houston's doing that a little bit now. A lot of these teams, Orlando, like they making moves for their future, and it's some great pieces that people got because it's more about pieces now. We're not trying to build super teams, you know. Like if you look at the KD move when he went to Houston, that wasn't about like we want to build around that, even though he's 27 tonight. But we still got these young boys we still developing and working with to make sure that our future is locked in. And I feel like that's what a lot of these teams did. And I think like all of them did a great job. You know, the Jazz with that move they made to get Triple J over there, you know, they had to move Colin, but at the same time, you know, Ace, Triple J, and those guys they have over there in Utah. I mean, you might be looking at something that's gonna look like the Spurs in a couple years, you know. So we'll see. I liked all the moves. It was nothing that didn't make sense to me, but yeah, I think it's more chess now with these organizations. The GMs, the executives, the GMs, the owners are younger now, so it's like we want to follow whatever's going. It's like that in the NFL too. I don't want to bring that up, but like it's kind of like that too. And they're taking a page out of these really well-ran organizations now, and you see in these organizations that's kind of been in the dark for a while, making those same kind of moves. That's it. That's how I feel about it.
It's interesting that you bring that up, and Des, I'm gonna pass it to you on that part because this probably is the first year I think we can look at these moves and we can actually derive something from it, right? Like we can understand the method to their madness, so to speak. I think in years past, a lot of these moves, even if they flew under the radar, you spent more time trying to figure out and calculate whether or not there was logic being put into it, even if it was for fiscal reasons. But I think there's an immediate read from these moves that are being made that a lot of it is financial and a lot of it is also building out the rosters, right? Not honing in on the big name player to help build the rosters out, but getting some of those seminal players that you know, if on a roster, they can contribute immediately. And if not, they can still be an asset from a financial standpoint, which was something, again, that we weren't able to see clearly over the last couple of years. I want to get your thoughts on that, Des.
Yeah, so we kind of mentioned the Utah Jazz already, and that was my first thought, right? I know they're looking at the Spurs like, oh, okay, we see that they have a interior defense dynamic with Lou Kornet and Wembanyama, where no matter what lineup we put out there, we got a rim protector. So Utah says, okay, we got Jaren Jackson, we can do Walker Kessler, we can manage that however we want to. And then you look at Indiana on the East, and they get Zubac, who's one of the better screeners in the league. They haven't had a rebounder like that since Sabonis. And then now I think his low post touches might take a dip, but he's going to get a lot of easy stuff around the rim. And I think a little bit what you've seen with when Zach Edey was healthy in Memphis, I would anticipate they get Zubac a lot of just easier catch and go opportunities, which is going to be right up his alley. So to your point and what everybody has said so far, I really think teams are watching each other, but at the same time making adjustments that they've really needed, not just wanted, but that they really needed too.
Absolutely. So let's get right into it, man. We're gonna kind of drill into each of these particular moves specifically, get everybody's thoughts, and obviously we're gonna talk about what didn't happen, right? Like the big elephant in the room, and which is obviously all eyes were on Giannis, being moved, and that ultimately did not occur. So what now comes of that? So we'll get into that a little bit later on. But first, let's get right into to some of the main trades that obviously, burned through the wire through the course of the NBA trade deadline. So the first one that really sticks out, obviously, is the move with the Los Angeles Clippers moving James Harden to the Cleveland Cavaliers for Darius Garland. And this is what I kind of had alluded to a little bit about certain teams smelling that opportunity, that window, And maybe this is that move for the Cleveland Cavaliers to push their chips in one last time here, given where they are and how much they've struggled. And if there was an expendable piece that they had to think about moving for them to get something significantly better back, or they believe is significantly better back. So I'm going to pass this on to you first, Des. What do you think about this play for the Cavaliers getting James Harden, and the version of James Harden that they're getting? Is it enough to catapult them in that conversation of being, again, people already pegging them that way, but we have to see it, right? The proof has to be in the pudding, having that dynamic come onto this team instantly and put them in that position. But do we now reassert the Cleveland Cavaliers back in the top echelon of the Eastern Conference because of this play?
Yeah, so I think for the short term, yes, I would say. But I admit I had a little trouble with this trade thinking about it in that way, because I think the thing we know about the Cavaliers is that Donovan Mitchell he's gonna bring his A game every night, and he's needed somebody to supplement what he's doing. And so from that perspective, I love that they got James Harden. Even if it isn't the James Harden from Houston or what have you, he still shows flashes of that player, and I like that the most for Donovan Mitchell. But when I think about just the overall trade, I would love to hear y'all's thoughts on how, because I'm struggling with the fact that is it going to be that much different from Darius Garland, in the sense that their bigs are still going to eat. They eat off a lot of dump offs and lobs and dunks at the rim. And yeah, James Harden, I mean, he can do one or three things. He can get to his floater. He can motion like he's getting to the floater and throw the lob. He can hit the corner shooter. I love it from that perspective. But when it comes to playoff time, I just don't know if it's going to be all that different. And I think that's the thing with the Cavaliers that we really got to think about, because Darius Garland hadn't really been the most consistent playoff performer for them. And then James Harden has his knocks as well. So that's the thing that I've been struggling with. But I did have them kind of as a trade winner for the short term, at least. But I'm a little bit hesitant to really say if they can take that Eastern Conference mantle.
I'm going to tap in and pass it to you, G, real quick. So interestingly enough, I had the pleasure of actually getting invited, if you will, to the Cavs Zoom, right? So Kobe Altman spoke right at 4:00, an hour after the trade deadline. So I tapped in because I had the same questions. I was like, yo, what's the mindset? And Kobe came out and he's like, he first gave all his props to Darius Garland, a pro's pro, and then was sure to say, hey, James Harden did not force his way out of LA. A situation kind of arose, and hey, we made a move that we think makes our teams better. But to answer your question, Des, what Kobe Altman said is that he thinks Harden's going to bring the leadership aspect to this. There's a toughness aspect to this as well, too. Harden got made fun of a lot in his earlier career, especially in those Houston days, for saying he didn't play a lot of defense. He's become an acceptable defender now. He's stout. He's a lot stronger than you think he is. So he's a better defender than Garland. And it puts him over the proverbial edge, at least in Kobe Altman's mind now, with the addition of Schroeder and Keon Ellis as well, too. That gives his Cavs a longer runway, or a shorter runway, I should say, to compete right now in a wide open Eastern Conference. That's really what it would boil down to, because everyone asks questions. Well, Harden's had some playoff failures. Are you sure? Right? And he's like, listen, yes. I think he said Harden's played 173 games. He probably gets made up the most of for the 5 he didn't play well. 173 playoff games, right? But remember the 5 where he didn't play well because they were game 7s or whatever the case may be. But Harden is a great leader. And that's what Kobe was looking to bring into this, in addition to an elite playmaker and somebody who's going to get easy buckets, obviously like he did for Zoo in LA, but easy buckets for Mobley and Jared Allen as well too. So that's what I got from that. Those are even my thoughts. That's straight from Kobe Altman, man. I was really excited to kind of just hear what he had to say. And that's how, I wouldn't say he defended, that's how he explained the trade. Gerald, your quick thoughts on, the Harden aspect in Cleveland.
It's clearly a move that ultimately sets up the longer play for the Cavaliers. Look, I talked to some people, the way that the Cavaliers within the NBA, the way the Cavaliers made these moves. Let's go back to DeAndre Hunter, clearing out cap space, making room for LeBron James. Once he opts out or decides, obviously, he's pretty much done with the Lakers, he's going back to Cleveland. He's going to end in Cleveland, the swan song, and all that the Cavaliers have done is just clear a pathway to really be able to have that space, the money, nowhere near that apron, luxury tax, and then try to fill out and build out some things with that. Because there's no way in the world that you can justify, and kudos to Kobe Altman. He's going to say the things that he needs to say, because let's be honest, it's not his team. You're not trading a guy that is 26 years old for a 36-year-old guy who's had problems in every single step in place that he's been. But also the thing is, what the word has been going around is that Donovan Mitchell next year will have at least 2 years left on his contract, with the opt-out year that being one of those years, the second year of that deal. He's looking to leave. And essentially, this is also being driven by Adidas. And for what my understanding is, Adidas will look to step in and make up the difference in money wherever Donovan Mitchell goes, to have an opportunity to be in a bigger market. And that's what it's all boils down to, because look, like you just said, the handwriting's on the wall. They did nothing to address their front court, which has been a problem. They cannot match up well against New York. New York plays bully ball. The Detroit Pistons will look to do the same thing. So when you talk about the moves, clearly they're going to say yes to James Harden and all these things. You will look at perhaps seeing Harden and LeBron being on that team next year. You trade a guy that's 26 years old. I don't care what his shortcomings may have been. He's 26. Obviously, the Clippers didn't want to offer James Harden an extension, something that they're saying, look, we're going to make sure we clear out enough room. And if you want to dig a little deeper, there was a rumor going around that reportedly, when all this stuff went down in terms of the under-the-table payment to Kawhi Leonard, there were a lot of people that got paid just for shutting their mouth. Lawrence Frank, for one, that got a 4-year contract extension. And a lot of people were saying, hey, he took care of those that kept their mouth shut. But believe it or not, they didn't want to give Harden an extension. That kind of led to a little situation where he was trying to sit out and stay in Phoenix. And they said, look, we're going to move you. But make no mistake, this is all set up and predicated on LeBron ultimately, barring any injuries, ending his career in Cleveland where it started.
Yeah, it's some pretty interesting things you dropped on that, Gerald. And listen, this is why you guys are, you know what I'm saying, the insiders, right? Like you know enough people, and you hear and you watch and you see the mannerisms and the movement and things of that nature. So I can definitely see that aspect of it from a basketball standpoint. And again, I'm just only going to speak to this part of it, and then Anthony, I'll let you jump on in on this. On our last episode, I had told Shaw, what did I think about this move about, moving DeAndre Hunter, and then getting Dennis Schroeder and Keon Ellis. And I said, I'll let you know if and when I see the Cavaliers do something to bring this full circle, right? So for the purposes of basketball, them moving Lonzo Ball brings this full circle, right? And I think to your point, Gerald, what you mentioned about the dynamic in the matchups that the Cleveland Cavaliers may and will have to face, because then we're going to now talk about that move that the Celtics made in getting Vucevic, the one that you love so much. The Boston Celtics, the Detroit Pistons, and the New York Knicks are basically three teams that are, and then you may actually throw the Philadelphia 76ers in that conversation as well too, are aptly teams that are going to pose a problem to the Cleveland Cavaliers from a front court perspective. So what do you do if you're, and you don't have access to Jaren Jackson Jr. that you could have tried to make a play for, but you can't, right? You must double down on your backcourt dynamic. And the reason why I'm leaning a little bit to what Shaw is saying is, fine, now you've got James Harden, you've got Mitchell, you've got Schroeder. You basically now have to double down on how your backcourt can impose its will on the smaller guards that they will have to play against in the New York Knicks at times, and or with the speed and quickness or the savvy to get past a guy like Anunoby and get guys past Hart and everything like that. I sense that what they think is Harden can help make at least their front court offensively better for the Cleveland Cavaliers because of how he can set up Mosley and set up Jarrett Allen, who obviously struggled to be able to get their own shot with that dynamic that they previously had with Darius Garland and with Donovan Mitchell. So this is going to be really interesting. To me, this is what's not going to get talked about. And until we see it actually play itself out, this is that chess playing checkers type situation that's going on. If the Cavaliers can make it work, they may have an inside, they may have an inside straight on this. But if not, to your point, they can at least now look forward to 2026, 27 when we're talking about the LeBron James possible homecoming. What are your thoughts on that, Anthony?
I think Bron's definitely going back to Cleveland. And another hot take, I think KD is eventually going to go back to Oklahoma City. That's another conversation. But in terms of the moves made, we haven't talked about that. That's my bro, but we ain't talked about that. But in terms of the moves made, I like what Cleveland did in terms of I always said that young fella D Garland, they had to switch that up now. They haven't found that dynamic. They can't get to the finals. So with D Garland getting the fresh, and I want to make it clear, bro, that turf toe stuff he has going on is a serious thing in any sport. So with him moving and getting like a fresh start in a new place now, James over there is the perfect point guard to be alongside Donovan Mitchell. Because Donovan needs the ball, but James can facilitate for real. I hate watching Cleveland play when Donovan has to facilitate because he's not that to me. He can. I just don't like it because he's a scorer. He's a quintessential shooting guard. And James now is the quintessential point guard. But he's 6'5". They got a 6'5" and a 6'4" backcourt now. They got the guys over there. So, I mean, in the East, he was in the East, but still going there, I think if you look up they built that team for the playoffs to me. So, like, if you get in, like y'all said, second round of the playoffs, I need 35, James. All right, I'll give you 35. All right, game 3, I need 16 assists. I'll give you 16 assists. Donovan, do whatever you want to do. You know what I'm saying? So I just think that like I said, a lot of the moves was chess. A lot of these people made trades for the playoffs. It ain't like, we're just going to do something. You know, a lot of these GMs are way more swifter, in my opinion, now. And younger, and they just want to make moves. They like, we got to win against this team, that team. Like, we got to beat them when it matters. It ain't just about beating them in the regular season. Regular season don't mean nothing. We don't even watch all the games in the regular season. For real. You know what I'm saying? So, like, all the moves made is like, oh, nah, everybody locked in right now. I'm watching all the trades, all the TVs. I'm watching all the trades. And I'm like, who making the right? I'm like, this is the first time I feel like everybody made the right move for their future.
And let me just say this real quick as well, too, because one of the things Kobe alluded to, he said, everything we lost, we put out, we brought back in. We lost a backup point guard, Alonzo Ball. We got Dennis Schroeder. We lost a starting point guard, Darius Garland, brought in James Harden. DeAndre Hunter, we got Keon Ellis. And we saved $100 million in the process. And so that part,
genius.
Really...
Hey, look, I'm going to shout out Kobe. I remember when he got hired, we was in Vegas. Genius at what he does. You know what I'm saying? One of the up-and-coming geniuses of what he does. But yeah, a lot of teams, they breaking down the money, like it's just financially fiscally, like you said, Lee, like fiscally getting right so that you can move forward for these free agents that's about to be available, but also gaining young talent that you can develop and build that up. And that's what I like about it with all these trades. OKC, young fella went over there. I'm like, Sam didn't take a big swing. I said, go get Giannis. But I'm like, that's why you Sam Presti and I'm me. Because you didn't give up your whole future. He got a young fellow over there, Darian. He got him. Yeah. And that was a great move because I was always saying they need more shooting if they want to compete in the playoffs. But they would have had to give up all them picks and a couple budding stars to get Giannis. And he's starting to have injuries. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, he made a small move, but it's going to be a big move because he can come in there and be a part of that culture, give them shooting, two-way player. He perfect for them. But, it is what it is for now. But I love everything that these teams, Charlotte, everybody, all the small market teams and teams that have been bad for a while, they're making great moves, bro. They made great moves. But it is what it is. And I don't think some of these people that people think have a market, they don't have a Trey Young over there. I like what Washington did, and Trey over there.
Yeah, we're about to get in. We're
like,
about to get into that. Into
that.
No,
my bad.
right
Yeah,
next.
I get to talk.
Yeah. No. I'm glad. See, you should be hosting, bro, because you queued it up quite nicely. I like. I'm saying. I love
got the show. Charlotte on the scene. Our show here, Beyond the Arc. I had my show earlier, and then
Amo with the alley, man. And I don't have those kind of hops, but I'll elevate whenever you throw one up for me, my friend.
I ain't had no hops like that. I can shoot it. I ain't hops like that.
You're tuned to the Baseline. Callie Warren Shaw with our man Desmond Powell, Gerald Brown, Anthony Morrow joining us here on the NBA Trade Deadline edition of the Baseline NBA podcast. Again, man, we appreciate everybody jumping in, throwing in comments. Our man Mike Steph, who threw in a very interesting comment a few minutes ago, indicating biggest trade was definitely the move made by the Knickerbockers, made and did not make. No Giannis was great. Getting Jose was clutch as well. Steph, we're going to dig into that a little bit later on in the show, but I like where you were going with that particular sentiment, man. So we're definitely going to get into that. But as my man Anthony said, man, the Washington Wizards, right? First, they earlier made moves in getting Trae Young, and then they became part of the conversation. They said we'd like to, quote unquote, enter into the chat by making a big blockbuster deal in order for them to get Anthony Davis, right? So shout out to our man Anthony Davis, man. He seems to get moved anytime that he's on the shelf. You know, he don't have to say nothing, and he gets moved. You don't have to say nothing, and somehow he gets moved. But, like, I want to get Gerald's thoughts first on this as it pertains to what we think the Washington Wizards are trying to do with this particular play. Is this the potential for a future Washington Wizards team that has Trae Young and Anthony Davis both being on the court at the same time? Do we buy into that? Or is there something else trickier going up, on their sleeve? Is this a savvy play in order for them to re-elevate the DC market, the DMV market, for people to buy into, basketball and playing the game of basketball with guys that like to put people in the seats?
Well, Cal, you're a smart man, and you hit it right on the head with that this is clearly a move by a Washington Wizards franchise that has been, again, maligned to say the least. And look, they've tried to do a lot of things in terms of, going young, and you saw how that was received. That was very brutal. It is something that really hasn't panned out. And then obviously, look, when the market, showcased what Trae Young was going to have at his disposal in an effort to try to get another max deal, he started coming out and publicly saying, I want to go to Washington. And all that stuff, all that did was essentially people in his agent and all these players knew that Washington wanted to spend the money, right? They wanted to, again, be a reputable team. So they took a flyer on a guy that clearly is not going to play that much because they want to protect the draft pick and not have the Knicks get a higher draft pick. So now they have him. He's probably going to play about between 20, maybe to 30 games at best this season, which will set up next year and look for him to get a max contract. Same thing with Anthony Davis. Dallas nor anybody was going to offer him a max deal except a desperate team that wants to win some back page headlines and say, hey, look, we're making an effort. Wizards fans, buy your season tickets now. We're going to be this, we're going to be that. When you ultimately know, at best, Anthony Davis might play 40, 45 games at the max. It just really shows that, again, I feel bad for the Wizards because they feel like they were taken advantage of and they've been sold a bill of goods. But you can clearly look at both of these players, Trae Young and Anthony Davis, getting long-term deals and max deals when essentially what we're going to say perhaps maybe 2 years down the line, man, the Wizards are stuck with these bad contracts. And who is willing to take these bad contracts? And then it's just like a cycle, the hamster wheel all over again. And if I just want to add one thing to chime in, I don't know if we're going to talk about it, but with the Utah Jazz, it's interesting that, yeah, it looks good on paper, but isn't it kind of strange that a team that started out the season looking to tank, playing all these young players, that all of a sudden said, we're not taking anymore. We don't want to try to get AJ to Boston that's playing right down the road. We try to win. Yeah. Come on, Utah Jazz fans, buy your tickets. This is clearly all money makers, but it just looks even more evident and depressing for the Wizards. And look, if they can catch lightning in a bottle, the Wizards fan base deserves some type of happiness. But that's my take on it.
It's the old school. My bad. I'm listening.
No, go for it. Go ahead.
It's the old school traditional, how we trying to stay alive to keep winning games. Like, I love Mike Tomlin. I'm not changing this up, but like, he won 10 games every year, but they had to start over. You win 10 games, lose first round in playoffs every year. You know what I'm saying? So like, that's what these teams are trying to hold on to. I mean, I don't have a problem. I agree with you, with Washington, but at the same time, if you give me all these picks and I don't have a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or a Luka Doncic to go with these picks that I can use whenever I want to, then you basically in purgatory. Like Washington, even with that trade, and I'm not mad at the guys, but if they win 42 games, what is that gonna mean?
That's a success.
You know but you're not. I'm saying, are you gonna? Is your future compromised for like winning a championship eventually? That's why I said all these trades made more sense with going young, because I'm like, I love AJ, I love Caleb, I love Darren Peterson, all them. But you're not finna let me. We're not going to the. Whoever you go to, you're not going to the playoffs right away. I love Cooper Flag. I love Jason Tatum when he came out there. It's just like, if I gotta build around you, it's gonna take some years to build around you. But who you gonna build around them guys? You see what I'm saying? And that's how I be looking at it. That's why I'm like, go young, develop these people so that they can really help you. That's what OKC, that's what the Spurs did. Like, all of them do that. So it's like, yo, we're gonna take Derek Peterson number one, and then what?
But
lose for 3-4 years because you can't get nobody in free agency.
But if I may
trade for them,
if I may, guys, if I just may, and I'm sorry, this is real quick. You can take that approach, right? And it sounds great. But let's look at these two teams. You look at Utah. Let's look at Washington. They have been perennial lottery teams.
Yeah, that's true.
We haven't gotten that guy. So you sit back and you get these young players, right? Yeah, you do all these stuff. But there's going to come a point in time. See the Oklahoma City Thunder, where you're going to have to pay these guys that if you develop and you consistently stack all these young players, you're not going to have enough money to pay them. That's why what Oklahoma City is doing is they're going to sit back. Look, Jalen Williams is not going to be there around for at least another max contract. Chet Holmgren, no, it's a smaller window. So when you look at teams,
where would they go though? Why would they leave?
Trade them.
The market gonna be the market, huh?
Yeah, but the thing is, the market is going to be the market. But here's the thing: you're going to be starting all over again. And look, Oklahoma City has been able to develop it, and they have a system that works. They don't have one in Washington, because you're right. Once these guys fall down, who are you going to build it around and be able to pick up the slack and now continue to add pieces? But you just can't have a roster of all these young guys. That's why Utah was saying, wait a minute, we can't do that because we're going to have to pay Keontae George. Isaiah Collier is going to have to get paid, right?
Absolutely.
You got to Walker Kessler, all these things. There are a lot of things, and that's why I said a lot of these moves were made with financial ramifications behind them.
Do you like what Utah did? You like what Utah doing?
I love what Utah doing. It's a question of, I'm signing these guys now so I don't have to pay that. I mean, look at Detroit. Detroit could have had an opportunity to sign Jalen Duren last offseason to a max extension. They chose not to. It backfired. He goes and becomes an all-star. It's going to cost them more money. And now what they're going to have to do is, that's why they had to trade Jaden Ivey and make some of those moves to be able to absorb this contract that Jalen Duren is going to get. And the fact is, you had an opportunity. So sometimes you can be too smart, but at the end of the day, you got to be careful in terms of backing your team with all these young players, because if you catch lightning in a bottle and it looks great, now you're going to have to be able to pay all those guys, and you can't afford to do so.
I want to bring
And on the
Desmond
market
in.
sometimes.
I know you've
I feel you, though.
been patient. Desmond in the background, patiently waiting to blow. I want to bring you in on this, and one thing I will say to your point, Gerald and Anthony, what I find interesting and what I think I'm going to find interesting is what will be the mindset that both veterans, right? We can call them veterans, in Trae Young and Anthony Davis, are going to bring to the table in a cultureless Washington Wizards team. Because you could have made the argument that it's been years since the Washington Wizards have found the right coach to help develop a culture for all of that young talent. Now that you have two veteran-laden players, one who is a former NBA champion, they obviously are going to have somebody that they respect. And then that's going to usurp whatever power structure there really is as far as how the management is running things as well, too, keeping these guys on that roster and staff. So to your point, Gerald, this could come at a cost, because even if this does work, eventually you still have to get back to the work ethic of coaching up and developing that talent that's got to eventually learn to play and be reliable and be a part of that roster that will have a Trae Young and an Anthony Davis if you're planning to keep them guys long term. Go ahead on this one, Des.
Yeah, so I can't speak too much on the financial implications of this, but the one thing, when this trade broke, this is the one thing that came to my mind. If the Washington Wizards are really smart, I think they're going to look at how the Clippers handled Kawhi Leonard last year. They're going to look at how the Hornets handled LaMelo Ball this year, and nobody's talking about it, but Zion Williamson has been doing his thing this year, and that's because they let these guys come off the bench. So if they're smart and if they're really worried about Anthony Davis like we think they should be, it wouldn't be a bad idea to just move Bilal Coulibaly in that starting lineup, and for some games say, you know what, AD, we had a good thing going with Alex Sarr starting at the 5. We'll let you come off the bench a few games. I think at this point in his career and with his injury history, I think that's the thing that the Washington Wizards need to think about, especially if they do plan on keeping Anthony Davis around long term.
Jesus.
No, that's real. I like that. The Hornets are they hooping. The Hornets are definitely hooping, but Zion's definitely hooping. It's just a lot of these guys, I don't know what their value gonna look like. Trade value was crazy. Well, I was saying, like, Trae got over there. We thought Trae was going to the Lakers. Ja Morant, nothing going on. They don't really want him over. He said he wanted to be there. They clearly don't want him to be there. And it's like a lot of these people, they think it looked like it's like 20 years ago trade value. Is not like that. It's not. They'll go get a 6'7", 2-3-4 guy that can play defense, a 3-and-D guy that's on the bench, and bring you to a championship team. Before look at all the trades. Like, it's not no superstar crazy things going on. Not no more like Trae, AD, but they not even considered, in my opinion, superstars right now. So it's like they not even going to get that. It was about Trae, LeBron. Who gonna want LeBron? I mean, everybody want him, but who's going to take that on and give up your whole future for the next 15 years because you gave up everything just to have LeBron and you know what I'm saying? We watching it with the signings, like everything. But y'all right. I just think that it's getting back to more development with the young guys than it is with let's go just find somebody that's disgruntled that's a superstar. They're not doing that no more because you got to change your whole organization for a couple years. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
I'm going to just tap in and close the loop on Washington real quick. I think one of the things that I was surprised by with this deal is that Dallas did not get Keyshawn George. They did not get Coulibaly. They didn't get Trey Johnson. And obviously they didn't get Alex Sarr. It was filler. And that's not to be disrespectful to Chris Middleton, AJ Johnson, and Marvin Bagley, and obviously the picks that are going there. But I think to everyone's point, the value of the superstar is very, very different now. And when you have, as they continue to say in the biz, the distressed asset, the $40-50 million player who does not play, he's just eating up your cap and not really doing much. You can't really do a lot when it comes to trading that, because it's a negative asset. And that's where I guess I shouldn't be as surprised that Dallas wasn't able to extrapolate more for AD than the player return. But at least they got some picks back. And we don't need to talk about the whole Luka aspect of it as well, too. We've been talking a lot about Utah here, kind of in the periphery, so to speak. So let's just go ahead and close the loop on the Utah Jazz here and their acquisition of Jaren Jackson Jr. This, to me, was probably the second biggest surprise behind the AD trade. While surprised at Harden as well, too. Like I think Jared alluded to before, Utah all of a sudden, again, known tankers, throw in 3 first-round picks to Memphis. Memphis obviously say, like, hey, now we going to tank and we're going to go the other direction. And they go ahead and sign Jaren Jackson or bring in Jaren Jackson Jr. Well, how much is he going to play? That's the question I want to know, because the Jazz are notorious tankers. Random flus and random illnesses that sit guys out all of a sudden. And then now you have a guy like that who's clearly a good basketball player. I don't know. I'm going to kick it to you, Cal. How do you think the Jazz are actually going to handle this situation here moving forward with Jaren Jackson Jr.?
I think they see him as their, I don't want to do it, but I tend to do it. But I think they see him as like their Paul Millsap of the future. Like, to me, this could be a great situation for Jaren Jackson Jr. We had this conversation a while back, Shaw, about, if you're the Memphis Grizzlies, what do you think needs to happen, right? And I alluded to this. I said, because you thought that I was really crapping on Triple J. And I'm like, I'm not. What I'm saying is that for the type of player that he is, the setting that was currently set up in Memphis has now all but gone away, especially after they had traded Dillon Brooks. That whole dynamic completely changed the narrative about what kind of emphasis and burden you're now trying to put on arguably your 2 best players in Triple J and Ja Morant. And we're not even talking about Ja Morant, but people are acting all surprised. Oh my God, Ja Morant didn't get moved. What did we say? We said that what happened to Ja Morant was going to have an impact on the way that the Memphis Grizzlies are going to have to move. If the whole idea is that they're going to have to do something. And the person who had the most value to make any kind of play and it work would be Triple J. I'm just surprised, yes, that the Utah Jazz came into it. But if I'm Triple J, I am happy about this. You get to be the player that you want to be in a place where there are no level of expectations. And
no expectations at all.
Far greater impact than what Lauri Markkanen has been doing, Walker Kessler is doing, right? Like, he has an opportunity to post those double numbers and not feel the burden of saying, I got to be the guy. I got to be the number 1 guy. He doesn't have to be. You know what I'm saying?
He ain't no double guy, though. He don't read.
No. But what I'm saying is that
he is that. Yeah, he is.
his presence, he could fall into it. He literally can fall into it the way that the Utah Jazz are set up. But what I'm just emphasizing is Triple J, to me, is the kind of low-key kind of player that needs to be in a low-key situation, not in a high-level, high-pressurized market where the Memphis Grizzlies had always been on the precipice of trying to get to the NBA Finals, right? They've always been that grit and grind, and he's never really adopted that aspect of it. He's a hard worker. He plays well, but I don't think he wants to be, that dude. I think he wants to be part of something. And when that started to fracture, his game basically fractured as well, too. I think this is a great opportunity for him to go out and reestablish that presence that he had established early in his career, and he's able to do it in a market that is thriving for the good old days when they had guys like Carlos Boozer and Paul Millsap and those boys doing damage in the front court. He ain't going to be like Karl Malone to them, but he can actually give you Karl Malone-esque kind of feels with how he can play, shooting the basketball, extending, and being a part of something over there. I just think it's a good thing. And that's just me on that.
Now, I rock with you, Lee. I'm not going to say too much, but I rock with you on that because his ceiling is super high.
I think it's still there. I just don't think it could have gone any further for him in Memphis.
No, I feel you. That era has ended. And it ended with Ja's situation. And that's just the truth. but because they had a high ceiling at that time. But I like him over there. I like all them guys over there, man. We'll see what happens. But they doing what they supposed to. Isaiah Collier over there, like all them guys, they'll be fine in the future. I don't know about like they a couple years away. They super young, but they're a couple years away. They'll be fine. They don't need a vet to come in there and say, hey, we had to trade all our picks, and they don't need that. That's what the teams is doing now. We're not going to get that. We're going to develop the guys. We're going to have the guys that's in here that's part of our culture, and we're going to move from there. They following the blueprint of the Thunder and the Spurs doing it. And now you see the Jazz doing it. You know, Orlando's doing it. Chicago's about to be doing that. I can see it with the trades they make, and they like, look, we'll sit back for 2 years. But we're going to make sure that our guys that we invested in turn into who they're supposed to be. We're going to fire some people, bring player development guys and new executives. That's the path now. You know what I'm saying? And not only in the NFL too. You're like, it's the same thing. I'm watching it. I'm like, damn, that's a good trade. They're not going to see it for 2 years, but I know it's right now. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I see it's a lot. Charlotte's doing it now. They got new management and executives up there doing the work. Like, everybody. Atlanta's doing it. Washington, like we was talking about. Like, I don't think they're going to stick on those two guys for too long, pause. Like, but they're gonna make a move or two in the draft, or they'll find a way to move one of them as assets. I don't know how long Trey gonna be in Washington, but or AD, because just injury prone. But if they keep that together, they can be a playoff team. I don't know if you're gonna win a championship, but yeah, everybody's
sometimes it's about like butts and seats, right? And I think there's also the minimum floor that these teams need to be able to pay out. And so one of the things, I'm gonna kick it to you real quick too, Gerald, because as we talk about the Utah side of things, it's really interesting because it does signal the end in Memphis to some degree. Now, while John Morant did not get moved, between them moving Desmond Bane in the offseason, getting those picks, moving Triple J, now getting those picks, they got 7 first-round picks for Bane and Triple J. John Morant now becomes one of those distressed assets, but a complete rebuild and youth movement happening in Memphis. And as Cal alluded to, this is a team where it's on the cover of SI or what the case to be. They're up next and all the vibes. They go and challenge the Warriors, even back when Dylan Brooks was still there. And it's just steadily been a decline. And now John Morant looking like Will Smith, where everybody at. It's just him. G, your thoughts on the pivot in Memphis, my guy?
Clearly, look, what they're doing, and obviously, I just want to make sure we just understand that this is all financial reasons, right? But also, too, you got to make sure that you keep your fan base happy, right? Look, Jaren Jackson Jr. got his money. But if I could be honest with you guys, and I want to ask every last one of y'all, if you make it over $50 million a year and you had your opportunity, would you, as an African-American, no disrespect, say, I want to play in Utah? Yeah, I want to play in Utah. I want to play out there. Yeah, I want to. Hell no, you don't want to be out no damn Utah. Plain and simple, they don't want to be out no Utah. It is what it is. The biggest thing is, let's look behind on the surface. You have the Memphis Grizzlies. They have not been able to come to an agreement, a lease agreement, with the FedEx Forum. That has been on the table since last year. And right now, that agreement expires 2029. They are looking more and more like, look, they're going to pack everything up. I've heard stuff that potentially they could be moving that franchise to Nashville. It's been a lot of issues in terms of renovation with the arena, the crime in the area and stuff. It hasn't been a good look. And as you look at this situation with these guys, I think honestly, and just to piggyback on somewhat on what you were saying about earlier, the vets and all that stuff. Look, after what happened in Dallas last year with Nico Harrison and management and having that debacle happen, owners are very sensitive. They're not trying to move certain guys to have a backlash and endure that with their fan bases. Trust and believe. We're going to see a lot of movement this offseason, starting with Giannis Antetokounmpo. Because if you make those moves after the draft or around the draft and people be out in summer league, people worried about football, baseball playoffs, all that stuff, it's an afterthought. And that's the biggest thing. And if you don't get back the necessary items, assets on surface that really satisfy and appeases the fan base, they'll turn against you. And I think clearly that's what happened with maybe Ja Morant. They didn't want to give up a lot of those things, but make no mistake, I think Memphis is clearly setting themselves up to understand, look, we got to probably have to find a new home. We're going to have to press the reset button. And it's already been laid out with Desmond Bane. We looked at Dylan Brooks. They made all these decisions. And Ja Morant, I think clearly they're going to find a new home for him, as well as this whole situation. I know we talked a little earlier about Dallas and really saying some of these head-scratching moments. You can't afford to be in a space what they went through last year. That was a sort of telltale sign for a lot of these organizations. And I think Utah is a little bit different to sit back and say, yeah, we got names and we're doing these things and we're going for it. But ultimately, the super vet, you can't make those moves right now unless you're getting a lot in return to satisfy your fan base. And when it comes to Memphis, they're just pressing the reset button, but Ja Morant probably in all likelihood will be moved this offseason just due to the fact of the matter is they still got issues in terms of finding a home long-term for that franchise.
Where's his market at though, huh?
His market, honestly,
because if they could have traded him, they would have traded him.
They could have traded him, but I mean, look,
they can't trade these people. They can't trade them now.
Trade those people, but the biggest thing, like I know for a fact, and again, these are some of the things I heard within the people. The Milwaukee Bucks fan, their management and ownership group, they were terrified to be able to say, look, if we send him the Golden State,
no, I get that. No, you're right about that.
These draft picks, the fans will say, what is this? If you send him to now, you make the trade in the middle of this year. If you send him to OKC for Chet Holmgren and you get 4 first-round picks, now you say to your fan base, hey, look, we ready to go.
No, they're not doing that. You're right about that.
No, they wouldn't do that.
But Giannis and Ja situations is different.
Totally different. But the thing about it is, in terms of what Memphis is willing to give back, and at the same time, how do you continue to put seats put fannies in the seats if you don't have someone to sell to a fan base and say, okay, at least we're trying. We're going to press reset, but we still got Ja here. And as I said before, it's public knowledge. The lease up in Memphis is in 2029. They're trying to get out of there and potentially end up somewhere else. And if that is the case, it's a greater opportunity to press the reset button. They've gotten draft picks back, and let's figure this thing out and move forward. They've been a small market team. They're struggling to put people in the seats. They can't afford to do that and risk losing the money for this season.
Send them back to Vancouver.
I want them to go to Seattle.
No, they're gonna put a franchise there.
Vancouver before Seattle. That's a great point.
They're gonna put a franchise in Seattle.
Seattle before in Vancouver. I know. I'm sorry.
Seattle been begging
compulsive
for basketball back up there, man. That's basketball city. One of them.
They're gonna get it. But Nashville could be an option for the Grizzlies staying in the state of Tennessee.
Shout out to Nashville. You think they can sustain an NBA team up there versus Seattle?
No, well, Seattle's going to get one. Seattle's going to get one.
Vancouver can do it. I don't know.
Yeah, Seattle's going to get one, and then Las Vegas, and then it's been reported that if they get those two teams in there, Seattle and Vegas, and then if it's Grizzlies or Minnesota, one of them will move to the Eastern Conference. And it just makes sense.
They got to shift the conference.
Yeah. So they're going to get a franchise. But Memphis is in a state of flux right now with that arena deal.
Yeah, they do a lot of weird work up there too.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. You know exactly
what I'm talking about. Hey, Sean, what's the next thing out? I'll leave that alone.
I mean, excuse my language, but they know what they did. We got paid, but they know what they was doing. But with them owners up there. And there was a few of them, a lot of them.
Anthony
Milwaukee,
asking them,
Memphis,
houses?
They know exactly. At this statute limits, I've been retired 8 years. They know exactly what I'm talking about. Like, dude messed up over that shit they was doing. Fucking, excuse me, the owners. But hey, Nah, what's next, man? Because
You right.
He putting it out. We might go viral. We gonna go viral.
No, they know
Put
what
the
it's
ether beat on that.
It's public knowledge now with them people, but it's all good.
I think
this is my last one though, because I actually have to go do my show.
Sir.
Charlotte on the Scene. Hey, I want to say shout out to y'all, man. 19 Media Group. Thank y'all for allowing me to be part of the mission and the program. Thank y'all, man. I had to come in and holler at y'all on that, for real. It's been a crazy day with business and family, all this, and kids, and running around, wifey, all this. But I thank y'all for everything, man. I just want to let y'all know that while everybody on the line right now. You know what I'm saying?
Hey Mo, you a real one, brother, and we are excited and thankful that you are rocking with us, man. And thank you so much for spending part of your day here with us and our fans here on 19 Media Group, brother. We will be rocking with you again very, very soon, man. Enjoy the rest of your night.
We can't wait for your show, man.
Game flow with Amo.
Let's go. You heard it here.
You heard it here first.
That is
Game flow with Amo.
Appreciate you, y'all.
Right here. Appreciate y'all, man. Love, man. Appreciate you.
All right.
That is the perfect time to take a quick break before we transition to some of the other trades that happen. Let's check out our guy Desmond Powell's kind of new show here. Check out his new trailer here coming up for the Mid Post.
What's up? I'm Desmond Powell, host and creator of the Mid Post podcast, where you can find raw, pure NBA commentary and analysis, isolation style. Join me every Tuesday as I face up the defense and observe the most intriguing storylines, trends, and moments from across the association. Then, once it's time to shoot, we'll explore other stats and tidbits that are so good they're nothing but net, while others might clink off the rim. And by the end of the show, we'll spread some love and honor an NBA star, past or present, who shine bright from this go-to area of the floor. There are a lot of spots on the floor to get a bucket, but if you really want to score, the mid-post is where you want to be. So what are you waiting for? Don't miss out and tune in every Tuesday on your favorite podcast platform or YouTube, courtesy of the home team, 19 Media.
Man, I'm so proud of that brother right there. So proud of that brother.
Salute.
Let's go, man. Check out the Mid Post.
Yeah, man, absolutely, man. All right. You started. What happened? You just check out the Mid Post and that's it?
You know what? Go ahead. You tout your show real quick. As we transition into the next part of the show, let the people know why you do the Mid Post and kind of the impetus behind that, my G.
So for those that may or may not be familiar, my previous show on 19 Media Group, Hip to the Games, was more of a basketball and hip hop centered show where I really blended both of my passions really into one show, and it contained a variety of things. The basketball topics that you're hearing today, a lot of song breakdowns, lyric breakdowns. I was very passionate about showing people the artistry behind hip hop, not just the music or the popular storylines, but really get down to the nitty gritty, like you guys do so well on your shows, and do it in my own way in hip hop. And over time, I just felt like my brain was really gravitating towards my first love. You know, those who follow me on the socials know basketball is my wife, hip hop is my mistress, and that became real in the last couple months or so. So the Mid Post allowed me the opportunity to not just use my creativity, but really focus on basketball like 100%. So I'm excited for this new chapter. Again, it's not a goodbye to Hip to the Games, but it's just a little pivot. And like I said, I'm excited to keep that going.
Yes, sir, man. Well, we're excited to have you rocking us with the 19 Media Group fam. Shout out to our guy, Mike, Steph, and Ty, keeping the comments rolling here and showing you love as well, too, my brother. Cal, what's next, my G?
Oh, well, before we jump into that, just so that you know, GB, Mike Steph was throwing out like butane fireballs when you were on the mic, my friends. He's like, yo, you lighting it up. So, you know, that you gotta make sure we give you your flowers right now, man. What do they say? Dylan spitting hot fire. Hot fire.
I'm putting it up.
Salute, man. Salute. I appreciate it, man. Definitely appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, so let's keep things moving along, and let's go ahead and talk about some of the other moves that we had mentioned earlier before. The Boston Celtics making a splash in the NBA trade deadline, picking up Nikola Vučević, and for that they sent Anthony Simons, who was on a heater for the Boston Celtics. during the latter stages. So maybe some people, they were a little surprised by the fact that they were going to go ahead and pull the trigger on making this play. But what do we make of this, right? Simons goes to the Chicago Bulls. The Celtics pick up their front court player. You know what I'm saying? Is it Kristaps Porzingis 2.0? Don't know. But Des, I'm going to let you jump in on this, man. What do you make about the Boston Celtics picking up Vucevic? And how do you think this sets up the Celtics moving forward now for the remainder of the season?
Yeah, so I actually love this move. This was one of my favorites. As you guys know, I'm an old soul, so I got love for the low post big. You know, even if they last name ain't Jokic or Embiid or Giannis, I got love for the low post big. And you know, he was clutch for us. You know, speaking as a homer for the Bulls, he was clutch for the Chicago Bulls on many occasions. But again, playing with DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, and then dealing with this transition, now he's the veteran who, you know, he was getting a little mad when we pulled out some clutch victories and saw the young guys celebrating. You know, he was our primary veteran, and I was happy that he just gets to go to a no BS organization in the Boston Celtics and can give them what they've been looking for in terms of establishing their front court depth, but also, to your point, Cal, bringing them a big man that can shoot the three. You know, something that, again, they got with Luka Garza this year, but of course, bringing in a veteran like Vucevic is going to establish that depth a little more. My biggest thing with Vuce is, as long as the Celtics are willing to keep him engaged, because he does have plenty of flaws defensively. It's not going to be like Porzingis or Al Horford in that way, but I do see him being like both of those gentlemen on the offensive side, where he can pass, he can rebound. He's unselfish. As long as those players keep him engaged and they feed him when he beats his big down the floor, and they feed him when he seals a mismatch inside, and they feed him when he's setting screens and rebounding the basketball, then he's going to give his best effort. I think he's a classic example of keep your bigs engaged, because the hard thing about Nikola Vucevic is when he's not engaged, it's going to look ugly. But I think the Celtics, he fits with the Mazzulla ball with all the 3-pointers they shoot, and he gives them added rebounding and just he brings a little bit more, like I said, as a playmaker. And that's the thing that has made the Celtics who they are today. Having multiple guys on the floor that can do something with the basketball and provide a variety of skill sets. That's how a lot of these contending teams are winning. And so I think Nikola Vucevic gets them closer to that.
I just want to tap in real quick. I think all your points are amazing, Des, honestly and truly. It's clear that you study the game and understand, as a Bulls fan, right? And again, Vuce is a guy who needs activity. He's tougher. The difference is here with Porzingis is like he doesn't give the vertical spacing and none of the really the shot blocking. But he is actually a better passer than Porzingis was. Although Porzingis was sneaky good, at least in Boston's system, especially at the nail and back cuts. You know, I see Jaylen Brown cutting and getting those back door, but Vucevic really can create some offense there as well. I am concerned slightly, though, about the overall chemistry fit, and then the loss of Simons, who was just really starting to hit his stride in Boston and being a plus bench scorer. Now, in the one game that we've seen, Peyton Pritchard has gone back to the bench, and maybe he's best suited for that role, and that's what they're going to get, their proverbial bench scoring. But I am a little concerned about their ability to get the overall wing depth, and now what's going to happen with the offensive side of the basketball, especially coming off the bench. Because Keita, if he goes to the bench, he's not going to come in and give you points. He's going to give you what he's been giving you, rebounding and shot blocking. And that's obviously very valuable. But that is where the one thing I'm like, But I'll close by this and kick it to you, G, because you said you do like this trade. And Brad Stevens, I trust. And in Joe Mazzulla, I trust. These two things, they have not, they seem to know what they're doing. So my thought process, while concerned, I have to trust the process really and truly that Stevens and Mazzulla understand what they're really doing and how this will ultimately play out. Your thoughts, Cheryl, real quick on the Vucevic trade.
Yeah, look, first of all, he's on the last year of a deal, make about $21 million. So listen, they take an opportunity to fit him in. And the clearest example is understanding that, you know, I know Anthony Morrow mentioned about the Pittsburgh Steelers, and just really, when we look at the Boston Celtics, they have created a culture of the expectations and the guys that's there. You're going to come in, you're going to play hard. So they know. And the beauty of this trade and the Boston Celtics is just like, you know, they're a veteran-laden team that knows how to manage a season. We all thought that once Jason Tatum went down going into this season, they had some struggles, kicked the dirt on them, they were done. They had a reason to go ahead and take a step back. But lo and behold, you look up, and slowly but surely, They have continued to play well. Jaylen Brown, before the injury, has been playing very, very well. And then you add Nikola Vucevic in there to give a guy that can be able to score. Like Desmond had talked about a lot of the things that he can do. He's on an expiring contract, and he's looking to get paid on the next deal. It might not be with the Celtics, but at the end of the day, he's going to have to play well. And I think the culture that is in place there, it's not going to be very, very hard for him to fit in, especially going and coming from a franchise in the Chicago Bulls where they were pretty much either playing for, a play-in tournament spot or not making the playoffs, to now having an opportunity to once again try to chase an NBA championship. And the job that Joe Mazzulla has done with that, I think he'll be very fine and fit in very well. And once again, he doesn't have to carry the load. And the expectation is just to be one of the guys, do the things that he needs to do and do well for that team to excel.
Mm-hmm. Let's pivot real quick. Cal, I wanted to ask you, I don't know if you have some thoughts on the Celtics side of it, but also Simons goes to Chicago, and I'm not quite sure. I had that later on a rundown in terms of Chicago's, like, all the guards. They have, like, literally all the freaking guards, but Simons fit in Chicago. And then also, I guess, your thoughts on the loss of Simons in Boston.
Well, the loss of Simons in Boston, I think, we'll see how this has, ramifications as far as the competitive play in this, on the back end of the season. Because I think when the Celtics struggled in their ability to shoot the basketball, Simons was that kind of player where he can get things going. So when you see them kind of struggling, he comes immediately off, gets off a couple of shots, gets a rhythm going, and then all of a sudden it wakes up the Peyton Pritchards. It wakes up the Derek Whites, and listen, that's how Joe Mazzulla's offense typically ran. Like, this was kind of the reverse. Last year, Peyton Pritchard was the person who was coming and helping to get, kind of relieve the offensive pressure when Tatum and Brown weren't in sync offensively, or, the shots weren't falling for Drew Holiday, or the shots weren't falling for Derek White. I think Simons kind of took a while to figure that part of it out. And then during this stretch, he now became that guy, right? So we'll see if this will have an impact when we're talking about post NBA All-Star weekend, in how that's going to impact the Celtics. To the Chicago Bulls side, I was reading something on Instagram. I don't know if I forgot what thread it was. And I didn't realize this because you just mentioned it, Shaw, about the fact that they are just like the Chicago guards. I mean, it's no longer the Chicago Bulls. It's the Chicago PGs. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, this is a financial play by the Chicago Bulls. And after this season is all said and done, it's rumored that the Chicago Bulls will wind up having the lowest cap of all the teams in the NBA, meaning they are positioned to throw money at anybody, you know what I'm saying, that wants to get paid, and they still be under the cap when they'll still be under the apron when it's all said and done. So whether or not we think that is a heady move by the Chicago Bulls, or it's savvy enough to position them to what Gerald's been talking about, this has been a financial savvy NBA trade deadline. If at the end of the day we're talking about Billy Donovan running out six point guards and you're starting five, we don't have to mock them or make fun of it when the Chicago Bulls are going to be amongst one of the top teams that whoever is going to be ready free agency wise is going to be chomping at the bit to help resurrect the greatness of the Chicago Bulls, or be a part of that starter for the Chicago Bulls. So it's kind of interesting, but yeah, man, real slick by the Bulls, man, real slick.
No, for 1,000%. So
I'll just add to that. I'm sorry, Warren. I'll just add to that, Cal. If there's one thing I've seen about Billy Donovan, he is going to know how to play all them guards. I know this is a shock to a lot of people. I had to watch plenty of games where he put Alex Caruso at the 4 and Patrick Williams at the 5. If there's anybody that's going to figure out how to do this and make it manageable, I guess, quotes, manageable, is Billy Donovan.
Anthony's going to feel some kind of way having to deal with that, having to deal with Bobby Portis and Tobias Harris at times, but it's all right.
But I will also add too, just speaking on Bulls management as well. Now, even in the event that they may not get Giannis Antetokounmpo or whoever, I think an interesting thing about how they've been handling their organization is that it dawned on me the other day that Arturas Karsonovis, who came from the Denver Nuggets, he's the president of basketball operations, and Mark Eversley, the GM. But I mainly want to focus on Arturas because he came from the Denver Nuggets, and this was the Denver Nuggets didn't really have to tank per se after they traded Carmelo Anthony. They still made the playoffs after they traded Carmelo Anthony. And then, of course, after those 2-3 years, they did fall into losing seasons. But I don't think it was necessarily tanking with tanking in mind. And so I think he's brought a lot of that to Chicago in the sense of I think he's saying like, okay, the last time I was in a situation where I should have tanked and didn't, the basketball gods rewarded me with Nikola Vučević in the second round and Jamal Murray in 2016. So I think that showed him if I play this game as a GM with integrity, then I should be follow that same path. So again, I know it's very easy to get on the Bulls and how they've been managing things. I've had my moments, but I thought of that and I said, now it doesn't really sound that crazy. But of course, like Cal said, we'll have to see how it goes, especially with all this money that they're trying to generate now.
We'll pick up the pace there a little bit on a couple of other quick hitters, and we've already mentioned this a little bit already. Jared McCain lands in OKC, a shrewd move, I'd say, by the Thunder, but also shrewd in the way that we didn't know SGA was dealing with an oblique injury. So AJ Mitchell is also out with an oblique injury, I believe, as well too. But the Thunder have still sit atop the Western Conference despite all the injuries that they've had. Jalen Williams, both Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren's been in and out of the lineup, and now SGA out at least through All-Star break. McCain still on the rookie scale deal, fresh off of what could have been a rookie of the year situation from last year had he not got hurt. Gerald, your quick thoughts on the OKC getting Jaren McCain for the Philadelphia 76ers.
I think it's a great move. Obviously, it fills a need, and especially a team that's going through some injuries. If you want to talk about having a great time to have injuries, you'd rather have them early as opposed to late. And look, Philly was in a space that obviously with the suspension of Paul George, they're pretty much, I think, now $1 million away from that tax bill. And you know what? Getting rid of Jared McCain allows them to be able to save some money rather than having to cut somebody because of the two massive contracts of Embiid and George, and really paying Tyrese Maxey and looking like, you know what, ultimately, when the time comes, you definitely have to pay VJ Edgecomb. So OKC does what they're supposed to do with those draft picks and things of that nature. And, the rich continue to get richer because obviously what the Clippers have done, all that they have done has ensured that once again, the Oklahoma City Thunder are going to have a high draft pick based upon them owning the unprotected pick of the Clippers. So, you know what? Sam Presti continues to do it, but I like the move ultimately for the Thunder.
Okay, you have thoughts?
Good move. Solid move. I think some people thought that Jared McCain took a step back. I mean, it's hard to take a step back when you were basically injured and you're coming fresh off of the injury. I think that they just didn't expect VJ Edgecomb to be this talented and this good and fit so well for the Sixers. And so, I think it made Jared McCain expendable in the sense that for what the Sixers could probably need and utilize given the circumstances of Paul George, hey, he's obviously an attractable piece for a team like the Oklahoma City Thunder. And if you're the Sixers, Sam Presti ain't going to take crap from you. You're not going to give him crap. He knows exactly what it is that he's looking for, what he needs. And it's just a question of, are you willing to part ways with it? And luckily the Sixers are in a position to do that. So I think it was a solid play for OKC. And I mentioned talking about this to Shaw, I think we had asked a question that said, do we think that the Oklahoma City Thunder would be built to try to go after, the regular season record? And I'm like, why? That record does not hold the same kind of weight that it does. And you can clearly see every move that the Oklahoma City Thunder is making is clearly detailed and scripted for them to say, when everybody comes back fully healthy, we'll even be more deeper and more dangerous than you actually had thought because of the things that we're doing. Subtle, quiet, but stealthy and deadly moves. And that's what's going to probably set the Thunder apart, from the team that we're going to continue to keep talking about as to who's going to contend with them either in the Western Conference or in the NBA altogether.
Yeah, I think for both teams it makes sense. Daryl Morey is also a shrewd general manager, a pretty good evaluator of talent as well too. Him even getting McCain and obviously them getting Edgecombe, this past offseason as well. They get a 2026 first round pick, which is obviously OKC's pick, I believe. I don't think it's one of the ones that's protected. But either way, Daryl Morey's like, well, what are we doing with this guy? We have no room for him. So sure, I'll take another pick and I'll bet on myself and my ability to be able to draft somebody, and make it work. So I think, this works for both, but really need to watch what ends up happening with this SGA injury, especially if it's going to be anything that's kind of long-term. Moving right along, let's dive into and Cal, you and I, we've been through the throes with Jonathan Kuminga. Jonathan Kuminga does not get a graphic today. He just gets a ticker. He just throw them on there. But Jonathan Kuminga goes to the Atlanta Hawks. Kristaps Porzingis to the Golden State Warriors. I'm going to kick it right back to you, Cal, and then everybody else kind of picking from there. The Kuminga saga is finally over for the Golden State Warriors, and Kristaps Porzingis goes to be the center of the now. I don't necessarily know the future, but the now for the Golden State. Don't know if this is needle-raising for GSW, but Cal, your thoughts on Kuminga to Atlanta and Porzingis to Golden State, and there was some other filler in there as well too, right?
I'd love to mimic that interesting emoji. I mean, listen, Kuminga might be happy because he's like, I'll go anywhere except continue to stay with Steve Kerr and Golden State. But then I'm going to ask you, I'm like, you're going to Atlanta and you are playing around next to Jalen Johnson around, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm trying to see how Quinn Snyder is going to be able to deploy and utilize Jonathan Kuminga with the way that team has been set up, right? Like, we'll really see what all of that comes about, But listen, he's going to get his opportunity. He's going to get his opportunity to thrive and shine. I can definitely tell you that, because Atlanta can't go without, basically deploying the whole roster, to be able to even hang with where they currently sit in the Eastern Conference. So I think the more interesting move is the Golden State Warriors pulling the trigger on Kristaps Porzingis. And listen, I was on the fence when the Boston Celtics pulled the trigger on Kristaps Porzingis, and he proved to me that he can adapt and fit nicely, and he thrived, and he won a championship, right? I'm not saying that he's going to do the same thing for Golden State, but I will say that of all of the plays that Golden State have made, this one to me seems the most sound and seems like it can yield the most immediate benefits, with the exception of, what Jimmy Butler brought to the table. That to me was just a matter of having a disciplined basketball player who is competent as Steph Curry to come in, and that's how they instantly go out and win basketball games. Now this becomes a question of matchups and talent. And Kristaps Porzingis, when healthy, can be a matchup and talent problem for any other team opposing them. So we'll see if whether or not that blends well with the current state of Steph Curry and wherever the mental state is of Draymond Green, and if it yields to wins for the Golden State Warriors. Definitely ain't going to mean championships, but it could open up an interesting conversation in the offseason for both of these guys.
Yeah, I agree. In terms of, I spoke to somebody close to Kristaps, said, hey, he's happy to go and go play alongside Steph. He's still got whatever mystery illness kind of going on there. So we just want him to get right and get healthy. Desmond, I'll kick it to you real quick. Who wins this trade? And no disrespect to Buddy Hield, who also went to Atlanta alongside Kuminga. But who wins the trade in your opinion?
That's interesting. I would say are you just saying the Warriors or both Warriors and Hawks?
Yeah, between them, right? Like who, or is it a push, right? Both teams got what they needed.
Yeah, I kind of lean towards Atlanta. At least right now, I kind of lean towards Atlanta, and that's just mainly for me because I've been saying that the next step for Atlanta is to get Jalen Johnson a shot creator. I did not think that was going to be Jonathan Kuminga. I don't think a lot of us did. I'm thinking that, hopefully or in some way they could get one of the top draft picks and see. But I think this is a tremendous opportunity for Jonathan Kuminga to not just prove the reason why he wanted to leave Golden State, but prove that he can be a vital piece for a team like Atlanta, who is trying to improve and start a new era for themselves. I think because of the way Atlanta just loves to go. I mean, transition is they might as well be the Atlanta transition points, not the Atlanta Hawks. Like, because that's all, when you watch their games, that's what they love to do. And they got guys. They got a guy like C.J. McCollum. I think Nickeil Alexander-Walker has played tremendous this year. So it is interesting to think about how Jonathan Kuminga can fit with that. But at least me being more optimistic, I do think that Quinn Snyder can find a way to get Jonathan Kuminga in his spots, especially kind of like his ISO touches in the mid post or what have you. Shameless plug. I do lean towards Atlanta, but I like it. I like it for the Warriors. It's just the health thing with me.
Gerald, any thoughts there, real quick?
I think it's a win-win situation for both teams. Management, first of all, you get Kristaps Porzingis, who's on a 1-year deal. He's got to be able to play, I think, and show something. He can be able to help them out. Look, it's been a struggle for them to get a solid big. They didn't get Giannis now. I think that they can still be able to obtain Giannis in the offseason. So that still is in play because now you don't have that liability. You don't have that contract hanging over your head. And then second of all, look, it was bad. It was bad blood between, Kuminga's camp and the Warriors. Just really wasn't a good fit. Now he goes to Atlanta, and unfortunately, what is going to happen is if he's able to elevate in his game when he gets back and healthy, now Atlanta has an opportunity to trade him because he's going to be a viable trade asset because that second year of his deal for next season is a team option. So wherever he goes, now he can have an opportunity to end up perhaps maybe in Sacramento or another team that is looking for a young player that is on a nice contract that, again, show and prove about $28 million. If he can come in, he can work himself into an opportunity for a long-term deal, and the Atlanta Hawks can retrieve some type of assets in return. So it's just basically, look, getting rid of one headache for another team's headache, if you will.
Yeah, I think very well said. And we don't talk about these Kings at the latter part of this because they didn't do some things, but, Ja and Kuminga could be guys who end up there maybe in the offseason, but we'll save that, towards the latter part of the show. The last real major one that I think that we should discuss, Zubac. And somehow the Indiana and the Pacers swoop in, Rick Carlisle and company, as they are tanking. We'll hope to get a draft pick, get Tyrese Halliburton back as well, and now add Zubac into the fold. Benedict Mathurin, Isaiah Jackson, 2 first round picks go over to the Clippers as they reset the table, so to speak. But Gerald, I'll kick it right back to you and go in reverse order, man. Did this one surprise you at all that Indiana kind of bought on Zoo here at the latter part of the trade deadline?
Yeah, I think, this one was one of those head scratchers. But again, you know what? It's talking about now because especially off of the surge that the Clippers made and really being in a space that clearly they wasn't trying to tank and all this stuff. But it's been a very crazy first half of the season for the Clippers, starting way back before the season with the whole Kawhi Leonard situation, payments under the table. Then you had the CP3 thing happen with him being sent home while they were in Atlanta on a road trip, to now James Harden not getting his contract and saying, hey, I'm going to sit at home in Phoenix. They getting him out of there immediately. And now, you're losing Zubac, who was very, very good. And I thought that he was one of the serviceable big men that, played against Jokic and played him very, very well. So that was kind of a head scratcher in terms of this move. But they are going in a direction that position themselves. They're going to have some money under the cap. They're going to be looking to be able to be major players in LA, a major market. So I'm going to say more than ever, they have a plan that is beyond this season. As I said before, the biggest winner of their decision to move Zubac is pretty the Oklahoma City Thunder, who own their draft pick for this year. And look, the worse the Clippers play, the better that draft pick will be for the Oklahoma City Thunder. So it's kind of a head scratcher, but they ultimately have a big, big plan. And I think now they get a point guard back that they had to move in order to get Paul George and SGA. And now they get a guy in Darius Garland. and they get an opportunity to press the reset button. And who knows, they might be a major player in the Donovan Mitchell situation when he ultimately decides that he want to move on and gets into a major city like the Clippers in LA. It could be pretty much them back together again. So it bears watching to see exactly what they're going to do long term.
Did you like the youth movement? Now building around Garland and Mathurin in LA. Obviously, Kawhi's contract will come off the books next year. So everyone's saying the Clippers are playing for 27. But now they have at least two younger guys that gives them a little bit of runway. Your thoughts there real quick.
Yeah, I actually do like it a lot because just last season or the last few seasons, you look at the Clippers and they had zero future. I mean, nothing whatsoever. So to get Darius Garland, you get Ben Mathurin, and even just on a worst case scenario, that's a decent duo you can work with. I think when you look at some of the talent that they have in-house already, like Kobe Sanders, I know they really like their big man, Yannick Konan Niederhauser. Like that's a more athletic guy who can be around the rim. And I think I put out a post earlier today, like I really think that's kind of where Kawhi was gravitating towards. It just seemed like he wanted to play with more athletic players, athletic bigs, as opposed to a more low post guy like Ivica Zubac. So I like it for the Clippers, especially because they do have a little bit more of a future to work with than what they once had. And I do like it for Indiana as well. Again, we've said it pretty much the entire show. Like that's a team that is definitely looking at, all right, when our guy gets back from injury, like we got our sights on the finals. Again, same thing, like the Eastern Conference is getting better, but we still going to be right there. And we're trying to get back to where we were. So, they established some big man depth and I think fill a much needed hole. I think it's some similarities to what we said about Nikola Vucevic, just somebody that can kind of help out their offense and diversify it a little bit. I do wonder how it's going to work because the Pacers play a lot more up tempo than Zubac's kind of low post nature, but I do think it's a great pickup on both sides.
Okay. Cal, I'm going to kick this to you, not necessarily from the Zubac side of things as well, too, because I think we're big losers as Celtics fans, and we would have loved to see Big Zoo, in green. Didn't happen for us there. But a couple of other quick hitters there. Which one of these kind of stick out to you, if any at all? Pistons get Kevin Huerter to add some shooting. Knicks get Jose Alvarado. I know the Knicks fans, Gerald, should be really happy about that. He's going to be a crowd favorite there. Lakers add Luke Kennard. Wolves grab Ayo Dosunmu. I think that's a nice pickup. I would have preferred they got Kobe White, but nevertheless, Hornets, get Kobe. They do get Kobe White and Mike Conley to kind of shore up things. Don't know if Conley will finish the season there. Any of those things kind of stick out to you as quick hitter trades that happen at the deadline?
Yeah, I mean, look, the Knicks picking up Jose Alvarado, I think, is huge. I just think that you don't mess with what the New York Knicks have. I think by doing something, you're telling people that it matters, the core team that you have, taking yourself out of the Giannis conversation, which I believe was ludicrous. You know what I'm saying? Like the last thing you want with the team that's basically coming in on an 8-game winning streak. At the time, it was 7, right? Before last night, winning that double OT against the Nuggets. The last thing you need is questioning the confidence of arguably your X factor player in Karl Anthony Towns, right? You add more depth to this team. So I think by them going out, and you don't have to make a big splash, but you do the necessary work to bolster things that are going to clearly be indicators for your ability to compete in this upcoming playoffs. And by getting a guy like Jose Alvarado, who's going to bring tenacity, defense, he's going to bring nasty, he's going to want to fight. You know what I'm saying? That's what the Knicks need. They need another level outside of what the numbers speak to for them to be able to compete against teams that are going to give it to them in a 7-game series. And so to me, that one stands out more than anything else, because all the other moves that everyone else has done are like moves that were, across, like on the margin. They're level good, but because we're not taking those teams seriously, they're not going to stand out as much, and we're going to probably have to wait maybe a season or so, or whatever next play happens in the offseason where that move dictates something for us to talk more about. This to me has a more immediate feel to it, where Mike Brown is going to have to play Jose Alvarado. He's going to have a say in what's going to happen when the Knicks get into the playoffs, and I think that's a good thing for the Knicks.
I like Ayo to Minnesota because they don't have another point guard, really. So, I mean, they needed to figure out something, and he's super efficient. And again, as a two-way guy as well, too.
Well, Shaw, one thing I was
interesting. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Shaw. I was going to say, I think that's great as well, too. And if, from what they were saying, it's being rumored that the Hornets, I believe the Hornets are going to buy out, are planning to buy out Conley. And then Conley is saying that he will come back to Minnesota. I think Finch, though, needs to rely on Ayo more than having Conley, but having Conley come back, I think it will do a lot for the Minnesota Timberwolves, especially in that locker room as they gear up to get into the playoffs as well. So they basically can almost have their cake and eat it too if this plays out the way that they're saying it may play out.
Yeah, I don't know if I've seen that before, and I know you have to basically be, but since he'll be 2 teams removed since he was traded to Chicago and then Charlotte. So then, but I thought there was even like a statute of limitation in terms of time where that needed to happen, but that'd be pretty amazing. Any of those stand out to you, Gerald or Desmond? Quick hitter trades before we wrap with the guy who did not get traded.
I think it's a good move, like you guys talked about in terms of what Charlotte is doing. Look, they're protecting themselves. Where Lonzo Ball is, not Lonzo, LaMelo has been obviously, had some injuries and stuff. And look, that young nucleus is starting to play well. They could potentially be in a chase for a play-in tournament spot. Jose Alvarado in New York is really insurance because I think Deuce McBride is going to be out with a core surgery. It's a core injury, so he might be out for quite some time. And now you have a point guard in there that's going to be able to help them. And look, Mike Conley going back to Minnesota is very interesting, but I think Houston will have something to say about that, and depending on how much money they will throw at him. But ultimately, the one that stands out, and I know we didn't mention him, it could be potentially the end of the great career of Chris Paul, because of obviously the point guard position. And if Mike Conley so happens to go to goes to Houston, I think ultimately I don't see a team really needing the services of Chris Paul.
Yeah. Desmond, any final thoughts on these quick trades?
No, I'm actually with you with the Ayo trade. I mean, if I could tell Minnesota fans anything, that's basically another Dante DiVincenzo, somebody that's going to shoot the three, somebody that's going to guard 94 feet, and, somebody that can rebound his position well, somebody that can, I think it shouldn't go understated that Ayo Dosunmu kind of had to play the small forward a lot for Chicago. So now he's able to really get back to his combo guard roots and contribute in that way. And I think even to the point of Kobe White, right? Like I kind of think the Timberwolves are like, well, Bones Highland has really shown up for us. So maybe we can focus on more of a utility guy like Ayo Dosunmu and let Bones Highland be more of our 6-man in partnership with Naz Reid and help supplement the buckets that we're going to get from Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle and so forth. So, yeah, I really love the Ayo trade. Again, he's a Chicago guy. And we're not going to be loud, but we got hustle. I'm really excited for what Minnesota can do with him. Because there's no doubt in my mind they're going to love him over there.
Hey, real quick, Des, you brought up an excellent point, and I feel like in a way this play helps bring what the Minnesota Timberwolves clearly lost when Walker went to Atlanta. I think now you get a little bit of that back with him coming over to Minnesota, and that I think again elevates McDaniels. It elevates Reed. It elevates a lot of these guys that I think part of that burden fell on Dante DiVincenzo to have to handle. And as a guard, like for his position and the way he plays, it was too small. I think you get a little bit of that back by getting Ayo on your squad. And that's a great point on your part, man.
Absolutely. So going to be a panel choice here as we close out the show. Do you guys want to talk about biggest winners and losers, or do you want to talk about Giannis? How do we want to close this joint off here on our live here? Giannis not getting moved, or teams rather that, hey, we think did a great job, or teams that should have did something and sat on their hands. Gerald, what you got real quick?
I think my losers are the Milwaukee Bucks. Unfortunately, you're going to have to hold on to Giannis, and obviously he's dealing with an injury, and this is going to be something that's going to hover around the Milwaukee Bucks for the remainder of the season. And obviously, if things don't go well, it's just really, really difficult. And it's kind of dating that girl that you don't want to be with anymore and stuff. And it's just having the challenges with this. But it's been a lost season for them because ultimately, when they didn't move him last off season and coming into this season, having this, you knew that this was going to be the big storyline, especially if they didn't get off to a winning start.
All right. Okay. We'll do them both. I think losers are the Sacramento Kings. Not sure exactly what the situation is there. Maybe they'll do something in the offseason. You know what it is, brother. They hold on to DeRozan. They hold on to Levine. I mean, maybe there's not a market. They hold on to Sabonis as well. It's just, yeah. I see you, Des. Thumbs down to Sacto.
I'm sorry, I got to chime in. Those my people there. Shout out to Scott Perry, my man BJ Armstrong. Let me just say this. They are inheriting players from the last regime. And in order to make a trade, somebody's got to be able to want those guys. And it's just very difficult. And look, a lot of teams sat on their hands, not willing to make the moves. I give them credit because, look, they signed Dennis Schroeder. They had an opportunity to move him and put him in a better situation, get DeAndre Hunter. So it takes a little time. They've dealt with injuries and all that stuff, but they're cleaning up somebody else's mess. So I'm not going to really go too really difficult. And I know that. I just wanted to give you a little bit more context.
Hey, Gerald, I'm glad you just spoke to that because I just want your perspective. I don't want you to say anything that is gonna, be derogatory or be negative, to BJ. I know there's your peoples and stuff. And listen, we
Scott Perry is my people too.
And Scott, yeah, absolutely. But do you get the sense or the feeling that the future of Sacramento still lies with having Domantas Sabonis on that roster?
I really don't know because I think the biggest thing is I look at Sabonis and you would say that he's pretty much undersized to play that 5 spot. If he was able to sort of guard a little 4s and stuff like that, and they had sort of a big that they could put there, I think he would play well, but I don't think it's long-term. And look, those pieces don't really fit. And I think also the thing that we have to keep in mind, and sometimes it's easy to overlook, the owners are the ones that basically say yes or no to any trades. General managers will put trades in front of people's faces and stuff like that. It's the owner that ultimately says, you can do that, you can do that. I'm not paying these guys. I don't want this, I don't want that. So it can be challenging, but I think it's going to take some time. And obviously they're going to have to be able to build this. And I truly believe in Scott and BJ. And Scott, I mean, look, the proof is in the pudding, what he was able to accomplish in New York. And it's really continued to set them up for long-term success since he has been gone. And I think BJ is going to do a phenomenal job. So it takes a little time, but I don't know if Sabonis is going to be there. He's not that centerpiece. They need other pieces around, and they're really starting from ground zero.
Des, I want you to weigh in on this one. Do you think the biggest losers were the Sacramento Kings or the Milwaukee Bucks?
I think it's the Kings. To be honest, to Gerald's point, I think Scott Perry was really open about that in the beginning. Like, hey, it's going to take some years. I just think it's just interesting because I think about the De'Aaron Fox side of it all, right? Like, it's just a lot of those guys wanted to play with the dynamic that he had with Sabonis. And now when he leaves and says, all right, like, I do want to stay here, but if the opportunity comes, I'm out. He leaves, and now all these guys are left playing here and playing like disinterested basketball. Every time I watch them, I feel so bad because they got these competitors like Malik Monk, like Russell Westbrook, DeMar. Zach LaVine hasn't really looked how he did when he started the season because over time it's just they're playing disinterested basketball. I think they secretly see themselves in different situations and they're doing the right thing. They're thugging it out, but yeah, I'm just not a big fan. And I don't want to shift the conversation too much. I was actually more short-sighted, but I was actually more upset with the Sixers than the Kings. I kind of expected the Kings to do something like this, but I was actually more upset with the Philadelphia 76ers.
Wow. Go ahead, Cal.
Oh, I thought I was gonna let you land on that aspect of it. To me, I'm gonna go against the grain. I'm gonna say that the Milwaukee Bucks to me are the biggest disappointment and the losers because everything was being fixated on Giannis Antetokounmpo, and I think you know what I'm saying. Like that to me was the easiest part. Ain't no way in hell you gonna move Giannis Antetokounmpo during the NBA trade deadline, and you only have 4 teams that you're talking about being interested in offering up packages when you can have the whole off season. I think more than anything, the Milwaukee Bucks had a prime opportunity for them to move other pieces and for players that I think could have been, instant impact makers for other teams that are in the playoff hunt. Moving Bobby Portis, moving Brook Lopez, figure out a way to move Miles Turner, move any and all of these guys and get things back, right? And listen, Shaw just posted that tweet. How funny, no disrespect. I love Giannis. He's one of my favorite players, but to me that felt disingenuous. Legends don't chase, they attract. All right, my man. Well, go do that. You know what I'm saying? I've never seen where he has actually went and done that. You know what I'm saying? Go do that, right? Go and attract the talent that you're saying you need and want for you to rebuild and reposition the Milwaukee Bucks back to what you got in 2019. So with that being said, that's why I feel like they're the biggest losers because you really can't tell what it is that they're trying to accomplish and do, even if it did great, even at the expense of saying we're trying to save face by not letting our franchise player walk, by not commanding the situation the way it needs to be handled. You're not giving people any idea of what the pathway looks like post NBA trade deadline moving forward. And you still have Giannis. So this is a miss on their part where they could have moved some pieces and got everything back and detract the whole idea about this being about Giannis getting moved at the trade deadline, even because you knew you were going to wind up doing this in the offseason.
My closing bar, if you will, while I agree with everything with Milwaukee, I understand maybe some of that. Maybe a little disappointed in Miami, always sniffing around, kind of always the bridesmaid, but never the bride type of situation when it comes to these superstars. So, living in the South Florida area, I know there's a lot of disappointed Heat fans who did not get anything, to kind of go their way. I don't think they even made one deal, not even picks. So, Miami is going to be an interesting place here for the final close of the season, man. But I think this was an immense show. I want to thank you, brothers, and shout out our guy, Amo, who had to go jump off because he's one of the hardest working men in show business right now. I had to go do some other shows as well, too. But 19 Media Group dropping a live NBA trade deadline recap, man. This was a lot of fun, brothers. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you. I want to put a guy already on next year's trade deadline and perhaps this offseason. Where does Kyrie Irving go? They're doing rebuild mode now. Where does Kyrie Irving go? That is going to be something that's kind of under the radar. It's been very quiet.
Detroit.
It'd be really interesting.
I find that funny that you saying Detroit and you didn't say Chicago first.
He got to go somewhere he win. I don't think they need him in Chicago. I'm sorry. Des, go ahead.
No, you good. It's the NBA fan in me, Cal. There's an affinity between the Bulls and Pistons. They took care of Isaiah when I wasn't even thought of, and then when they got D Rose, they took care of him. So they're rivals, but there's some family in there too.
Okay. I'm just making sure.
Cool deal.
Listen, this has been an awesome show, man. And this obviously will not be the last. So much going on. I know that we're going to probably gear ourselves up for the NBA playoffs. And so we're definitely going to look to try and do a live stream and have us on there and chop it up, man. But GB, DP, my man Shaw, man, we appreciate everybody who hopped on board. Appreciate Mike, Steph, our man Tyler, everybody that chopped in on the boards. Those that were watching and listening. And again, man, continue to keep us locked. Keep the 19 Media Group fam on lock. Catch us on the YouTube channel. Catch us on all the threads. Be sure to check out the Bottom Line Sports Show. Be sure to check out The Midpoint with my man Desmond. Be sure to check out Dope Interviews. My man Warren Shaw, always highlighting and profiling the big names going on in sports, entertainment, and culture. And as always, man, if you need all of your fix for basketball basketball talk, you know where to go. You go to the Baseline NBA podcast. For the Baseline, Callie Warren Shaw, Gerald Brown, Desmond Powell, we appreciate you guys so much, and we'll catch up with you next time.